Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Tuesday show. I've got the great Dean Obeidallah joining me today. If you want to jump to that conversation, it begins at 26 minutes in. But I've got a whole clip show for you coming as well, so I hope that you will enjoy the clips I've gathered for you. I hope that you're doing okay here on a Tuesday. I'm still in Syracuse at my parents' house, but I am headed back to home downstate today for a few days at least to help Ava, my 21-year-old, almost 21 on the 21st, her golden birthday, and her film that she's making. She's making a short film, and I'm going to join the crew. I'm an extra. I'm helping out for 2 days, so you might not hear from me. I'm going to try to post stuff, but please hopefully be patient while I support my daughter during this very, very busy, tumultuous time. And we will get back to normal posting, obviously, next week. But I'll probably be here. You know me. All right. Well, I've got a whole bunch of clips for you from yesterday that I want to share with you. And, again, I will get back to the headlines as well, including, let me just mention a couple of things you might not have heard of from yesterday. Apparently, the 3 highest-ranking Roman Catholic clerics who lead archdioceses in the United States have said in a strongly worded statement that America's, quote, moral role in confronting evil around the world is in question for the first time in decades. Their critique of the Trump administration's policies, while not mentioning Trump by name, escalates the American Catholic Church's denunciation of the country's top leaders. I thought that was a pretty big story, probably not getting too much attention, but it should in Catholic churches across the country. What will evangelicals say? I'm sure they'll say the same thing, won't they? No? You don't think so? They'll go along with whatever he does because they're often Christian white nationalists? Yeah, I thought so. Apparently overnight, Uncle Scam, the notorious PIG, the Mad Red Hatter himself, compressed a week's worth of diplomatic taunting into a single burst of social media activity last night. He called NATO's Secretary General announcing a Greenland summit. He leaked private messages, mocking Canada's sovereignty and attacking the UK over a U.S. military base. He began by saying he had a very good phone call with the NATO chief, Mark Rutte, and agreed to convene talks at Davos on Greenland territory. He's repeatedly suggesting the U.S. should control, repeating his claim that the Arctic island is imperative for national and world security. And then he just said a whole bunch of other crazy nonsense. Worth mentioning, the social media onslaught comes as he's escalating pressure on European governments resisting his demand for Greenland, announcing 10% tariffs on 8 European countries. The move triggered frantic discussions between European leaders over how to contain the crisis that is rapidly moving beyond rhetoric and that nobody wants. This is a real crazy one. I mean, General Fatton himself, and now what he's doing, of course. And since, of course, he is a white supremacist, constantly signaling to white supremacists, he completely ignored Dr. Martin Luther King Day Jr. I know many of you didn't, obviously, thought about it at least, did something, some kind of service, but he didn't say anything all day long, and when all the news agencies capped their day, he still hadn't. But then last night, he proclaimed Martin Luther King Day. He was criticized by civil rights activists for breaking from tradition by failing to recognize Dr. King's legacy or attending any kind of commemoration of the holiday. Of course, all presidents in the past, not all, but since it was a holiday, have done something, attended parades, commemorative services held in his honor, at least launched a tweet. In his proclamation, he said, Dr. King's extraordinary resolve stands as an enduring testament to the unstoppable fire of freedom and tragically ultimately cost him his life. Yeah, I don't think he thought that was tragic somehow, and I don't think he meant that. The lack of proclamation for most of Monday was criticized by civil rights groups, including the NAACP, Bernice King, Dr. King's daughter, calling Americans to remember her father by, among other things, amplifying and advocating for the end of state-sanctioned and facilitated violence against black and brown immigrants and against people, period. Meanwhile, another war. Meanwhile, more airstrikes in Syria from the U.S. A third round of retaliatory strikes by the U.S. in Syria, resulting in the death of an al-Qaeda-affiliated leader who officials say had a direct tie to the Islamic State member responsible for last month's ambush that killed 2 U.S. soldiers and 1 American civilian interpreter in the country. In Minnesota, a federal judge imposed restrictions on the actions of immigration agents toward protesters in the state on Friday. This happened, a decision that comes after weeks of mounting tension between demonstrators and federal officers. And a welcome delay. With Americans reeling from high consumer prices, the federal government will suspend tax refund seizures and wage garnishments for people in default on their student loans. You know, because that was the cruelest, most uncaring, stupidly designed policy that we've seen. The action dials back the administration's recent decision to resume involuntary collections after a nearly 6-year suspension because of the pandemic. Everybody's talking about this bold move. The Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell is going to attend the Supreme Court's oral argument tomorrow in a case involving the attempted firing of federal governor Lisa Cook, a very unusual show of support by the central bank chair. Terrible tragedy where a judge and his wife were shot and wounded home in Lafayette, Indiana. Manhunt is continuing after this shooting occurred. But this is America, and so unfortunately not a shocking shooting of a local town judge, it looks like, in Lafayette, Indiana, where, by the way, last night Indiana University won the college football national championship, if that's something you care about. The richest man in the world is worth almost $800 billion, and now he's just spent $10 million donation, signaling he's back for the midterms. He's backed Nate Morris, a Republican businessman, in a primary race to succeed Senator Mitch McConnell in Kentucky. So it looks like he's back and will be playing an influential role in the midterm elections, which is just terrible news. It is a scary time for sure, everybody. We are on heightened alert for what could be next, and I am right here with you all the way along for the ride, doing my best to connect each other with others, with the smartest folks we can find to explain it all as we navigate this journey together. But yeah, it is crazy. It's just terrifying, and we have to do our best to maintain that anxiety and find peace and joy as much as we possibly can, and then start a gratitude journal so that you remark upon it and so that you keep a perspective. I'm doing that in as many ways as I can in my head, just when I'm meditating. Sometimes I write it down. What am I thankful for? I highly recommend you do that because it reminds us of the good things and the good people that are in our lives, and they're everywhere. You just got to look for them and count them. All right. Okay. Let's get to the clip show, shall we? Can't do any of this without you. Thank you to new subscribers. Patreon.com/Pete Dominic. And I will not be hosting a hangout tomorrow night because I will be with Ava, but I'll try to do it on Friday or Saturday this weekend for sure. I'll get together with you because I'm going to want to talk with you for sure. I promise you I'll figure out some time to do it, some rando time. All right, now it's time to get to the clips. Let's start with Senator Ruben Gallego. 2 days in a row, we're hearing from him here on the show. He was on CNN with Anderson Cooper, and he said that our president is a madman, which is right on point, I believe.
Can trust us anymore. How does this end well? It does not. And it's all because this man's being petty. And he's putting himself above the country.
Well, it seems like European leader strategy so far has been to basically try to de-escalate, reason with the president, and find some kind of an off-ramp. Do you think there is an off-ramp?
No, and I've been very clear. He is a madman. He is insane. He's only thinking about himself. Everything you're hearing,
and you
whatever
really think
Marco
he's
Rubio
insane?
saying, whatever J.D. Vance are saying. Yes. I'm sorry. Where are we at this moment where we don't understand what's happening in this country? The man is threatening war against a NATO ally, and we're all thinking this is rational, right? Let's accept what's happening here. He is not rational right now. He is destroying our world reputation, potentially our economic opportunity, our economic mighty power around the world because he is being petty. None of this is rational. Everyone needs to stop pretending this is rational.
All right. Well, that senator sounds pretty concerned. And so does renowned political scientist and author of the highly respected The End of History and the Last Man, considered one of the foundational texts of modern international relations. Real expert. He's got a YouTube channel. I think he's at Stanford. Francis Fukuyama reacted to Flacido Domingo's latest moves to acquire Greenland. He urged Europe not to back down. To Benedict Arnold argued that he really must be stopped this time. Here is Francis Fukuyama for just under 4 minutes.
Over the weekend, Donald Trump announced that he would be imposing a 10% tariff February 1st on 8 European countries that had agreed to send forces to Greenland, and that tariffs would be increased to 25% by June 1st if they did not agree to support the sale of the island to the United States. Over the past couple of months, There's been a debate over whether Trump was serious about claiming Greenland for himself or just trolling the Europeans. It appears that he is indeed deadly serious. I want to say this straight out. As an American, I have one thing to say to my many European friends. Do not back down in this confrontation. Up to now, both the EU and the major European powers have sought to appease Trump by offering him concessions, flattery, personal gifts, and other forms of tribute. This strategy has not worked and should be abandoned immediately. Donald Trump is fundamentally a bully who wants to dominate everyone around him. Trying to placate him with concessions is a fool's errand. He despises weakness and those who display it. Last spring, the EU cut a trade deal with him that accepted a 15% tariff on all European goods with no retaliation against American products. This was a bad decision. The EU, which in terms of population and wealth is on a par with the United States, should have taken a common position and retaliated. What makes any European think that conceding Greenland will mollify Trump? He will simply come back for more later. The arguments that Europeans have used for a concessionary policy is that they are still dependent on the United States for security and need help in dealing with Russia. They also argue that they don't want to provoke a mutually destructive trade war. But at this point, Trump's America has amply demonstrated that it will not be a reliable ally when push comes to shove. It has already abandoned Ukraine and stated in its national security strategy document that Europe has fallen behind the Western Hemisphere in terms of American priorities. Americans should keep in mind that those countries that stood up to Trump's threats in 2025, which include Brazil, India, and China, have actually done well for themselves. They've increased domestic support, and in the case of China, they forced America to back down. My European friends need to keep in mind that Donald Trump is not the United States. A majority of Americans are dismayed and outraged by his policies, and they will likely vote against him and the Republican Party in the coming November election. It may be the case that the world will have to suffer a global recession as more countries stand up to Trump and retaliate against his policies. But a U.S. politician who wants to weaponize trade and use it as an instrument for territorial aggrandizement really needs to be stopped.
Well, there you go. Francis Fukuyama. Very smart stuff. Well, one man who could contribute to stopping him but never would is tiny little Mike Johnson, who is a Christian nationalist himself. And he was talking with that British right-wing Trump bootlicker Nigel Farage, who, as far as he is to the right, doesn't seem like he wants NATO to be destroyed. I don't know. Either way, weird that they were having a conversation, but here's a short excerpt where Mike Johnson does not think there's any threat to NATO.
Get beyond this little rift. I don't think it's a threat to NATO or to this special relationship that we have in the long run. The president greatly values NATO, and in fact, to your point, he's done more for NATO than anyone in history. I mean, the fact that everyone has agreed to go to 5% of GDP as their commitment for this security concern is a very important development, and it would not have happened but for President Trump. I think he has deserved the Nobel Peace Prize. He's ended 7 or 8 conflicts, wars around the globe.
He seems very keen on that.
He does, and it's well earned. In fact, there's a number of persons of my colleagues, speakers from parliaments around the world, who will be nominating him jointly, I think, for the next Nobel Peace Prize. But this issue in Greenland, I think, should not be a disruption to all of that. I think we'll get past this. I do.
Well, let's hope we do get past it. Otherwise, it genuinely would be a rupture.
Just a little thing. We'll get beyond it. Sure. Right. No problem at all. Here is authoritarian expert and NYU historian, the great Ruth Ben-Ghiat, with a few points worth making on all of this.
Hi, everyone. I want to talk about Greenland and 3 aspects of this nightmarish, but all too real, situation. First, the imperative of plunder. This is why Trump wants Greenland. And in 2019, he started talking about acquiring Greenland. And his Secretary of State at the time, Mike Pompeo, said that global warming was a good thing, because it would leave exposed precious minerals and undiscovered deposits of oil. And so they want access to this. So plundering the resources of Greenland is one reason. Two is international relations and Trump's allegiance to Putin. I believe that Trump is in office in part to solve Putin's problems. And NATO is a huge problem for Putin and all bad actors. So creating a crisis for NATO and having division within NATO and, wrecking the kind of alliance of the U.S. and NATO as part of NATO by threatening to invade a NATO ally is part of this. And who benefits from this? Only Putin. Third, gets us into the terrain of autocrat psychology. The more an autocrat is unconstrained by Congress, the Constitution, laws, people around him, the more reckless he becomes. And so Trump is primed to feel that he has the right to anything he wants in America and in the world. And what has he not gotten that he wants so badly? The Nobel Peace Prize. And this may seem absurd, but if you study autocrats, this is actually not untypical. So he wrote a text to the head of Norway saying that because he wasn't given the Nobel Peace Prize, he doesn't feel he has to care much about peace anymore. And this, of course, was a threat. And he linked it to acquiring or invading Greenland. So that's the third reason. And we can never underestimate the danger of this moment, as absurd as the whole situation may seem.
A lot of people are saying that the Europeans are trying to appease him and they need to be strong and criticize him, as you just heard Francis Fukuyama say. And, well, not all of the Europeans are thinking that it's the best to appease him. Here is British Parliament PM Ed Davey not holding back.
President Trump is acting like an international gangster, threatening to trample over the sovereignty of an ally, threatening the end of NATO altogether, and now threatening to hit our country and 7 European allies with outrageous, damaging tariffs unless he gets his hands on Greenland. This is an incredibly grave moment for the United Kingdom, Europe, and our world. The only people cheering him on are Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping. He is a bully. He thinks he can grab whatever he wants using force if necessary. And he is corrupt. The most corrupt president the United States has ever seen. So there are only 2 ways of getting him to back down. Bribing him with a new jet perhaps, or a few billion in his crypto account.
All right. Ed Davey not holding back. Here is Pete Buttigieg weighing in, looks like from his kitchen at home, always wearing a flannel.
So that's one thing on the home front. But meanwhile, the president sent an unhinged message to Norway, like take away the car keys level of crazy message. Basically saying because the Norwegian government didn't give him the Nobel Peace Prize, the Danish government needs to give him Greenland or else he will punish all of Europe. This isn't just crazy and embarrassing. It is dangerous. These are our allies. I remember serving side by side with troops from Denmark in Afghanistan. These alliances have kept us safe for generations. Tearing them up makes all of us less safe here at home. And when the U.S. is even vaguely threatening its own allies, that's a destabilizing event for the entire Western world.
Yes, and it is not going unnoticed. Here is the president of the European Union, Roberta Metsola, in front of EU nation members.
The European Union supports Denmark and the people of Greenland, and we do so united in our resolve. The measures threatened over the weekend by the United States administration will not help improve security in the Arctic. In fact, they risk the opposite. Greenland and Denmark have both made clear that Greenland is not for sale, and that their sovereignty and territorial integrity needs to be respected. That fact will not change.
That's right. There you go. A little bit of the European perspective there. And now let's go to the former chief of staff, former Republican congressman, right-wing conservative MAGA. It is Mick Mulvaney. Mick Mulvaney was on News Nation, and he was highly critical of what Bragger Vance is doing vis-a-vis Europe and Greenland. So I thought it was worth sharing because even he doesn't understand and can't justify not only these threats, but these tariffs as well, because it's not something Republicans have ever stood for. Mick Mulvaney, take it away.
Mick, the focus, though, right now on Greenland, and the president obviously sort of upping the ante over the weekend. Put on your former chief of staff hat. What would you be telling him right now?
Yeah. Let's think this through. Let's be careful. Okay. Look, I'm all in on the importance of Greenland, this military importance, the strategic minerals. I get all of that. But at what cost? I want him to – I'm sitting there with him today. I'm like, look, Mr. President, keep in mind, this is our largest creditor. Europe buys more of our debt than anybody else. And if they stop doing that, interest rates are going to go up. That's not really good for affordability and the reelect. Number two, these tariffs. Say what you want to about tariffs. I think you make the case that maybe they don't drive prices up all the time. But look, everybody agrees they don't drive prices down, Mr. President. So there's nothing you're doing here that's going to solve the affordability crisis. I get it. It's important, but not at any price, because the cost here could be much, much larger than I think the administration is considering.
I hear you linking this to affordability, though, but the president keeps talking about this as national security. Is it that? Is it the rare earths? What is it? Where do you think all this leads to, Mick?
Well, I think it's a little bit of everything. Yes, there's a strategic component to it. Now, that being said, we can do a lot of what we want to do already under the current agreement with the Danes. We could also probably cut a deal to get the strategic minerals out, the rare earth stuff, without having to own it. But go back to what Trump has said himself. Number one, that it's psychologically important to him to own it. Number two, this bizarre, letter last night saying that, one of the reasons he's doing this is because he didn't win the Peace Prize. I don't think that sells. I think you can look at the American people and make a compelling case that there's a national security interest. But I don't think you go to the American people and say, oh, and by the way, I also want this because I didn't win the Nobel Peace Prize. Those are the kind of arguments that get you crushed politically in the midterms.
Here was Scott Bessent. He said, quote, the president is looking at Greenland as a strategic asset for the United States. We're not going to outsource our hemispheric security to anyone else. You know the secretary well. What do you think he's telling the president?
Yeah. I do, and I have nothing but respect for him. But if we're in the Oval Office having that discussion, my follow-up question is, okay, Scott, are we bombing Canada? I mean, what are we doing here? What are we trying to accomplish? If we're trying to defend the nation, there are ways to do it without alienating our closest allies in the whole world. I think Trump doesn't perceive right now that there's much value in friendship and alliances with the Europeans. And on the surface, I can see the arguments there. But when you start to break it down and look at what they do, what we do together economically, it just falls apart. So I'm all for Greenland, not at any cost.
Okay. All for Greenland, but not at any cost. All right, he's hedging a little bit. Let's head over to someone who doesn't ever. Jessica Tarlov on Fox's The Five explains it. I don't think this needs much context. This is just her doing a great job of fighting with the crazy people that she works with every day.
Brian, 82% of people saw that video. 53% think that he should be criminally charged for it. And then the Wall Street Journal comes out and they're reporting that there are incentives for ICE agents because they need to meet that insane 3,000 people a day quota, that they're getting rewarded even if they bring in people who then get released. These stories of Americans being detained saying, show me your papers. There was a veteran, U.S. veteran who's on a Carnival cruise, a U.S. veteran on a Carnival cruise with his wife who was taken out of his cabin, someone who served this country.
What is the percentage? Know the percentage.
Citizen. Do not act like ICE isn't making, I don't even know how many mistakes a day in pursuit of Stephen Miller's 3,000 a day quota and getting paid for it.
Yeah, but what is the percentage of American citizens being wrapped up versus undocumented? What's the percentage? I know math is hard. Greg Gutfeld is insufferable. Here is the mayor of St. Paul, Minnesota, Kaoli Her. It matters that she is Asian American. Here's what she had to say yesterday.
Received reports of federal law enforcement officers going door to door asking people where the Asian people live, right in our very own city. I myself have received advice to carry my passport with me because that they may try to target me based on what I look like as well.
Insane in the membrane. Absolutely crazy times in Minnesota and around the country. Here's Anna Navarro making sure we never forget just how much of a racist Count Flatula actually is on The View on ABC.
Somebody who has sent out ICE agents to target and profile people because of the way they speak, the way they look, the color of their skin, and the jobs they hold is a racist. Correct. Somebody who talks about Mexicans the way that he talks. Somebody that talks about Latin American countries the way he talks. Somebody who went after the Central Park Five, now the Liberated Five, and never has even apologized and was called is a racist.
Yeah. Very well done. Like it. All right, now it's time to get to my conversation with Dean Obeidallah, who is my guest today. You know him from his SiriusXM show on SiriusXM Progress every single weekday, 6 to 9. I was just on it this past Friday. Dean and I, good friends, one of my oldest friends in the business. You can read him at the Daily Beast. You can subscribe to his Substack, support him there, and follow him on all the social media platforms, Blue Sky and Threads and all the rest. Great catching up with Dean. You can watch this live on Substack or YouTube. You can watch the video. We were live on both those and a couple of other platforms. Let's do it right now. Catching up with my good friend and yours, Dean Obeidallah. Oh, yeah. We're live with the great Dean Obeidallah. Somebody just said, a friend of mine was like, oh, you guys are good together. I was like, no, come on. You're thinking of some other Dean. Dean Baker.
Is there another Dean?
I don't know. Is there?
There is many Dean. There's Dean Cain. I'm sure is a regular on your show. So, right.
Why aren't there any like really influential right wing celebrities or Trump celebrities? There's like none of them work. They can't get anybody to sing for them. They can't get anybody to perform at the Kennedy Center. Like it seems like most artists are always more liberal, but really like almost nobody that's worth or that's still working supports Donald Trump.
Kid Rock. Probably Kid Rock, right? He tours, right? I think he tours, and I think he probably still draws, to be honest. But, yeah, I mean, look, overall, why you don't go into the arts, which is unstructured, I think. If you're really conservative, you like status quo and things institutionalized, and you don't risk it. And then you have to deal with people you might not like. It's a diverse group of people in the world. I don't think your brain gravitates towards it. I honestly don't think we're just wired differently, not better or worse, just wired differently.
So I want to ask you here. We are on I'm very happy to have you joining me, and I was on your show on Friday.
Is that a sock on the floor behind you? Is that a sock on the floor behind you? Is that
might be? You must move it.
See, I like Pete. Pete keeps it real. There's no fooling with Pete. What I like about you, what was it in Scarface? What I like about you, Tony, there's no lying in you or something.
I'm in my childhood bedroom. It's just, my dad's kind of like extra room, his stuff here. That's probably his sock. Oh. But there was, when I did your show the other day before we started filming, there was a rifle in the corner. My dad has a pellet gun. And for shooting,
I didn't know where you were. You didn't tell us where you were on the show.
Oh, really? Yeah.
He's got a gun, and this is alarming. I was very
it's my dad's pellet gun. Like, I don't think he had it to shoot like groundhogs, but he can't bring himself to do it. I don't think he's ever fired it. It's just there because he was so mad that they were, attacking my mom's bird.
You carrying that rifle? Look like a Proud Boy on hunting season.
Exactly.
It's very unnerving.
Seriously, I look so much like a J6er. Like I can't go. I wanted to go to an ICE protest, but I was worried they might mistake me for ICE.
He's ICE. He's undercover. That's exactly what would happen. They would have been like, he's with them. I know you. So it's unreal what we're going through right now. Pete said Trump's fighting a multi-front war, which is not a good idea. Domestically and internationally. It really is remarkable.
I feel like during the campaign, and maybe there was something in Project 2025 about it, but I do feel like that the imperialist aspirations are new. And I don't think anybody that supports Trump cares what he does if it's against something that he campaigned on. It's kind of a cult that way. But am I right to say that during the campaign, he really did make people think he's like the anti-war guy and didn't want to send troops in and attack other countries and America first kind of thing?
Yep. Sure. I mean, let's be honest. If he ran on a campaign of elect me, I will kidnap the leader of Venezuela, I will steal their oil, I will annex Greenland. I will dissolve NATO as a result. I will bomb 7 countries. I will threaten Canada, Mexico, and Colombia. He doesn't win because some of the young base of his want jobs and want life, and the idea of maybe going to war or increase cost. If he said, I'm going to do a massive tariff war, you're going to have big inflation. If he said any of that, he lied about everything. And you wonder, how much is he in control? I honestly don't know how much he's in control. I think there are hours of the day where he's lucid. And I think there's hours of the day, like someone else at his age, it's where he slows down and other people are controlling it.
You see that letter he sent to the Norwegian prime minister today about Greenland, and he seems like he's upset because he didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize, and everybody thought it was fake, which is crazy this far into living with this psycho malignant narcissist as our president that we still aren't quite sure if it's real, but it was real. He really wrote this letter.
He did. Look, the guy wants more prizes and trophies. It'll make him happy. If anyone watching, if you have an old trophy around the house, maybe something from Little League or ice hockey or cheerleading, let's gather it all together and send him like a massive amount of trophies. And maybe in return, he'll leave. Like, we'll give it, like, you leave, I'll give you, I got an ice hockey trophy. I was like in 6th grade. I was pretty good. I baseball won. I have some participation stuff. I'm willing, all of that, whatever, like, we all gave it to him, like in a truck, and just showed up and that would be actually a good press thing. And you have the big truck show up and everyone's trophies, like dumping it down, then you get arrested but it would be a great moment and go, Donald, you can keep all these if you would leave. Because I know Jimmy Kimmel offered his stuff for ICE to leave. No, Trump, what will it take? Give you 1 year of Air Force One, all the fuel you want.
There's nothing he's insatiable. There's nothing. We could give him all the awards and it still wouldn't matter. I think it's part of the problem. By the way, I don't really have that many awards or trophies. So is it stolen valor to steal somebody else's awards to give to him as well? I don't know. But
in general, yeah, but not in this scenario. I think it's good. I think there was a movie about Trump called The World Is Not Enough. Wasn't that a James Bond movie with Chris Brosnan?
I think that's perfectly describes this guy's psychology. Right. Unfortunately, we have to live in it. It is Martin Luther King Day when we're talking. Have we reached the promised land? I wonder what he would think if he's alive. What do you think of Republicans who quote him today?
They're lying, deceitful pieces of garbage who look, America didn't like Martin Luther King when he was alive. Right before he was killed, his favorability was like in the 30s. So it wasn't like America came to like Martin Luther King. They're never going to come to like Donald Trump. The same people who are about white supremacy, because Pete, you touched on that earlier and on my show. If Trump was going to invade, let's say, a country that was brown and black and let all the people be part of citizens, because I'm going to take Colombia and it's going to be ours, well, then all these brown people get to be citizens. His base would go ballistic. Greenland, 50,000 white people, mainly, although they're native Alaskans or native Greenlanders, perhaps they don't like the off-white ones. But to them, if he can justify it by its defense and furtherance of white supremacy, he gets away with anything. So if they don't like Martin Luther King was about equality. Martin Luther King would have supported DEI and affirmative actions and things that make up for the wrongs of the past, all things they hate.
Yeah, didn't he get rid of, like, there's free entry into national parks on Martin Luther King Day, and they got rid of that and replaced it with Trump's birthday, I think, maybe even, but definitely they just get rid of that. What a weird, mean, cruel thing to do. But that's the point, right? Cruelty.
It is. I think there was a theory, and it might be right, that we all died during COVID, and this is hell. That's what I think this is. No, I saw that someone said that like a serious thing, and I'm like, that's actually kind of funny to look at it the way, because nothing makes sense. The guy Trump is ecstatic about a used Nobel Peace Prize. He is threatening Greenland. He wants to destroy NATO. Now, I wonder, we don't talk about it now, Pete. I mean, Putin's number one priority was destroying NATO. And the first time we talked about the connection of Trump and Putin, is that part of it? And it doesn't seem as much, but deep down, we just don't know. And we heard that I read that he's going to put Putin on the Gaza Development Colonization Board. Yeah. So he's going to put that on it. I think, Pete, on some level for us, honestly, in all seriousness, this must be what it feels like to live in Russia and oppose Putin. And at least here we can say it. There you go to jail, right? But to live in a place where it's a dictator or a tyrant, and the checks and balances of the Constitution have all been bullshit. We know that now. They should not teach the Constitution in school in America. You could teach it as a theoretical thing, but not there's checks and balances that prevent power. No. If you have a president who wants to be a king and a Republican Party like we do, and the Supreme Court, like Republicans do. There's no checks and balances. They should teach that, at least teach that. Here's theoretically the checks and balances, and here's the real world. When you have a corrupt political party that cares about nothing but power, you get a king in America. That's what we have.
Can I tell you a theory? I don't think it's working. Like, I don't think the project is working. I think that we have all these authoritarian experts, you know, your Tim Snyder's, Ruth Ben-Ghiat, Heather Cox Richardson. They're all really smart. And I think they've been super helpful. I've interviewed most of them and I think they've been right on. But I do think that what we're seeing in Minnesota is kind of the culmination of all these tactics. And I don't think that it's working. I actually think it's failing. And in a lot of ways, it's painful, and it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. But the overall project of scaring people to the point where they won't protest, to the point that they won't stand up for their neighbors, vulnerable communities, I think it's failing. What is your diagnosis of what we're seeing right now in terms of the resistance to this project, this authoritarian project?
I think the resistance in Minnesota is a template for the nation.
Yeah.
You know, it's peaceful. It's effective. You get out there. Heartbreakingly, Renee Good was assassinated and murdered by an ICE agent. But, you know, you have people lining up in big numbers. They're being overwhelmingly peaceful. Like, you really don't see any kind of violence going on. And it's driving the regime really more and more ballistic. And you're seeing these shows of force by them. And like Greg Bovino walking around like a Nazi leader. Like, he had a
special coat made?
I read, I'm not sure that's true. You know, I did see that on social media. I want to believe it's true, but then Pete, like we've talked about, just because I want to believe it's true until I vet it, I can't believe it's true.
Right.
But it did make sense to me. But I will say this, Pete, and the concern we should all take from this, the less popular Trump is, the less likely they allow elections in November that are full and fair, because they are going to lose control of everything. We could win the Senate. It's not unheard of where the map lays out, because you have open seats in North Carolina. You could pick up Maine. You know, there was another seat that's from Ohio, you know, because you got Sherrod Brown running again. We could. Now, it's not huge control, but it's enough. I think there's a concern. There's no way for a president to single-handedly stop the election. There's no button. There's no part of the Constitution. But he can make it difficult as possible. And my concern is trying to rig it in advance. Second, involved in corrupt counting of the ballots. And third, trying to prevent the seating of Democrats who won congressional races, using all they can, the courts, any legal, to prevent the seating of Democrats who win their seats in Congress. So I think the more unpopular they get, the more dangerous they become. And that's the reality.
Yeah. And they certainly are unpopular, and they are becoming more dangerous. And November is a really, really long time away, given that every day seems to be a year-long worth of headlines, right? I mean, there's so much time between now and then for them and for us, for them to be more unpopular, as you say, and for us to continue to unify and organize. The concern, however, is that they get what they want, which is violence. And I said, I think on your show, like, I'd be a hard time if I'm ever on these front lines, the way people are in Minneapolis, and I wouldn't mind being there. I'm afraid if an ICE agent was hurting someone I loved, cared about, or even a stranger, that I would step in and do something and then spend a couple weeks or months in jail. And that's exactly what they want. And I'm surprised it hasn't been more violent from protesters and organized resistance, right?
So you're encouraging violence? Is that what you're saying? This is what this is all about? We're plotting for the...
I mean, I'm never encouraging violence. I do encourage people to do what it seems like Renee Good and other activists have done, put their bodies in their cars between ICE, Gestapo, and civilians. I do encourage that kind of nonviolent resistance. I'm saying, at what point...
Right. I know what you're saying. I was being facetious when I said you were advocating violence.
You know, by the way, if I did anything, I'd get knocked out immediately. Like, before I even did anything, I'd just get knocked out and be that guy, and that my video would go viral of me with my eyes open but knocked out.
and we would play like in a loop.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you guys, you and John, if you go saying, everybody would.
We would have so much fun.
You would.
Look, I mean, part of me, it's not like there's a civil war coming. It's a different thing. We're not confronted by a mass of American people. We're confronted by a wannabe tyrant fascist, right? That's what we're confronted by. Do I think, does history tell us there's a way to win this without military action? I have to be honest. If you look at history, it's hard to say that it could end without some kind of organized violence. I'm not advocating that as a student of history. But even the most famous, Mussolini and Hitler, it's because of World War II, the Allied powers, they were gone. Then what's unique is that we actually have a history of a democracy in this nation, and you hope there's enough of us, which I think polling shows that would demand it. And there's not enough military to oppress all of us and suppress all of us. The question is how many people are willing to risk things, Pete, or just go along and go like, he'll be gone in a few years. Just let him do that. And you don't fight it. And by then your democracy's got, your republic is gone. There's no more democratic republic. You just go from king to king. And if we ever get a democratic president, the base will demand they be just as bad as the Republicans, but for good. Like, forget, just sign Medicare for all by executive order. Forget Congress. Like all that, which is fine. Okay, do that. But then what happened? Like this ends. The experiment ends at 250 years.
One thing I get frustrated with is the criticism of Democrats, the constant do something. And
yeah, I do that all the time. I say that.
Yeah, because I wonder, I used to listen, when it sounds like a right-wing media thing to do is to say do something and then not suggest what that thing is. Right. A lot of commentators, influencers, content creators, whatever, progressives, they mean well, but they go after Democrats who have to do a tremendous amount of work just to get elected. And then once they're there, they don't have any power when they're in the minority. What is it that you think specifically the criticism of elected Democrats in Congress right now? Obviously, I'm no fan of Chuck Schumer and leadership in general, but what do you make of congressional Democrats and what they are doing and what they're not doing? Because some of them are doing, I think, great work.
Sure. They should be challenging Republicans to a pickleball tournament because that is the way to really reach people. That or I think something a physical challenge, like an obstacle course type of scenario, because nothing else works. Look, Pete, I know I agree with you. Democrats can't pass legislation. They don't control the House. They're not committee chairs. They can't even do subpoenas without the chair's approval, right? So you can't do that. All they can do is fight in the media and be creative. And there are some. I always say the same thing here. I'd rather amplify the good Democrats because we know who the ones who do nothing. But you go like, oh, there's some that are good fighters. We could probably name the same 25 or 30, even 35 Democrats who are fighters. The problem is there's 250 Democrats in the House and the Senate. That's the problem. Where are the rest? Some didn't get elected to be fighters. They've been in Congress for 20 years. They go back to their district. They do constituent work. They don't even go in the media. Like if you walk around Capitol Hill, but I'm amazed when I've gone to interview members of Congress, like at the Rayburn building, names of Democrats I've never heard of in my life. I'm like, who is that person? Yeah. Like they just go back to their district. They don't go on TV ever. They just do their job. That's why they got elected. That's all they want to be. And then you have the corporate Democrats. It's a whole different wing. Like that's a different people, the Wall Street ones. I think that this is a time when you need fighters. And people, I think a lot of fear that where the stakes are so high, you want more. And yet people can't articulate all the time what to do. All they can do is go in the media, be effective, be creative, use independent media, do things we haven't. Like some Democrats went to Minnesota that aren't from Minnesota, from Congress. That's great. Go there. But Pete, the other thing no one talks about on our side much is that corporate media is pro-Republican. It is center-right at best, center-right. Yeah. They're
always has been. Always has been.
Right. They are happy to see the narrative to Donald Trump. The challenge is for Democrats, not just being creative, but breaking through where a media wants to amplify center-right, even right-wing things, because the executives want the tax cuts and no regulations and mergers and all that bullshit. So there's a lot going on. I think Democrats, be fighters. It's about tone. It's about people get it. Everyone likes Jasmine Crockett. Has she changed the role yet? No. We like she's fighting. You like Jamie Raskin. I like, Chris Van Hollen. There's some that are great. They haven't changed the world, but they're fighting all the time.
I was down in D.C. a couple weeks ago, and I was at my car at like 7 a.m., 6:30 a.m. It was still dark. And I see somebody I recognize. I'm like, who is that? And I go, oh, it's Congressman James McGovern. So I say to him, and I know I've interviewed him years ago a few times, but not in a long time. So I just go to him, Dean. I just go, McGovern. And he stops and looks at me. I go, Congressman, you're doing a great job. Keep up the great work. And shook my hand, and he just kept walking. And he was just alone walking to work. And I just yelled at him who he was.
He probably thought he had to report that to Capitol Police.
Yeah.
There was a weird-looking, Proud Boy-looking guy yelling McGovern.
He looked like
the whole time, like McLovin. Would have been funny if he said McLovin. But look, he is good. Like there's a guy. I don't know what he does outside of Congress, but when he gets in the well or the floor,
he's great
and is at the podium. Very, very good. So we go like he's a fighter. I don't know. And to be fair, there are probably other Democrats who go back to the district, don't get any press, and are fighting the good fight every day. It's part of. If we don't see you, we don't know what you're doing.
By the way,
that's the challenge.
He and Jamie Raskin lost kids His, I think, daughter also died. James Montgomery, some illness or something. And I said to him also when he was walking away, I said, I'm so sorry for your loss. And then he looked back and he gave me the most endearing look. He's like, oh, you do know who I am. You know, you're not just, I was like, yeah, I know. I know you are.
I didn't know he had a lost child. That's
yeah. But he's in there fighting, and that's the point. I mean, these guys have had terrible tragedies, and it's humanized them. And you like to think that their colleagues in Congress would acknowledge it and humanize them as well, but it's not necessarily.
What do you want? I mean, are you happy with the way Democrats are responding when the stakes are this high? When you have Hakeem Jeffries over the weekend, people are freaked out about Minnesota, and he's posting about affordability, which is an issue. I'm not saying that is an issue. And ultimately, November, that probably wins the day. But how do you not sense where the nation is, where the stakes are, where the base is, and not be laser focused?
No, I think there should be more organized strategic media and PR campaigns where they do repetitive things every day, where they're organized and on the same message every day, this many days until, I mean, I'm up for anything that is a publicity stunt to get attention. And I'm up for them going to visit ICE facilities where their constituents might be detained. I'm going, wherever they can be on cameras. AOC and Jasmine Crockett, they just go on Instagram Live. They're good talkers. And I think that's effective. So using social media. So I just think a lot of them are doing a great job. I'm not a fan of leadership necessarily, but I think sometimes people, when they demand that Congress does a good job, I always want to say, well, what are you doing? What exactly are you doing? And I'm not saying those people aren't doing stuff. I always kind of.
By going, I'm not in Congress. I'm not in Congress.
Well, who are you helping get elected?
I could do more.
Are you electing fighters?
The person in Congress could do more than you or I. They could demand attention and get it easier because they're a member of Congress.
Sure.
Like if I say. But even then, it's not like a member of Congress could say I'm having a press conference, and if they're not in New York City or a media capital, the local media shows up. Who else is covering it?
You don't need to, but that's the thing. With new media, I don't think you need to have a press conference. Just build a social media following by constantly talking directly to people. That's how Trump became, in many ways, very, very popular in terms of going around media and just messaging originally on Twitter, and now, on his third-rate social media platform, anywhere. He just messaged right to into the veins of it, and I don't think why we should be any different. Is it true that you're thinking about running for Congress?
I am thinking about it a little bit. I mean, but as a practical matter, I don't think it's within reach. But as wanting to go and use another platform to take the fight to Trump and to preserving our republic and fighting on the issues I care about, there's part of me, because I live in a district where there's an open seat and there's a race going on right now. I live in the 12th district in New York City where Gerald Nadler is not running for re-election. And there's a bunch of candidates, the more traditional ones, who will probably, at the end of the day, their assembly people will probably win it all. But there's a little part of me that wonders if I were to explore it, would I get more attention? And it's the internal debate. Like, where are you more effective? Like, where are you and I more effective? I just interviewed before I came on a Palestinian filmmaker. There's she's actually Tunisian, but it's about the voice of Hind Rajab, about a 6-year-old girl who was killed in the car in Gaza, and her family was around her. And they were all dead, and she called for the Palestinian Red Crescent. And I'm like, look, if I was in Congress, I probably couldn't amplify that story. I couldn't amplify my friend Shireen Dabbas's movie, a Palestinian movie a week ago, or some of my other things that I'm really passionate about that might not be political. And then again, maybe you can, but maybe you can't. So I have this push and pull about where am I most effective? And is it in the media? And is it, if I can raise my platform, my visibility, can I be more effective then? Or if somehow I ran and somehow won, would I be more effective there in amplifying the issues that I care about?
My concern is that you aren't effective at all. How do you feel about that?
I think so. I'd be neither effective in Congress or here in the media. So I've got that consistency. And, what I love about Pete is that we've known each other for so long. Because I was going to take a shot before, but I held you're like,
why would you ever hold
these
that's
are
a
Democrats.
Whole thing.
They just talk to them, they talk to themselves. I'm like, oh, like your show. He just talks to himself. But
yes.
There are some people who actually listen to this. People love Pete. Like when I look at this is the sincere truth. When I look at objectively at people who have moved up and that their platform is more visible to others, Pete should be huge. And I'm not bullshitting you. You're really good at this. But you've got a million things. You had your family, kids to raise, and all this other stuff. Some of the other ones didn't have that, I guess. But
yeah, no, I'm not exactly Aaron. I'm not exactly Aaron Parnas. Kid doesn't leave his damn phone. Like, there's nothing at all talented about the guy. He just constantly posting shit.
But and also it's peer to peer, right? If you were 25 doing this now,
sure.
Where it's TikTok, like you'd be blowing up.
I have the old.
You look like that.
Exactly.
You look like the way you do now at 25. You'd be huge. It was like, what happened to Pete? Like, he's working nonstop for us.
I have a huge following amongst old salty sea captains. Let me ask you just lastly about like just media in general. You are very effective in media and everything that you've done. I kid, but I think one thing that's important, as I was on your show with our friend Tara Dublin, and I fear that she and others go down conspiracy theories themselves. And I've always kind of prided myself as being good at discerning this and then not platforming things. And I've gotten things wrong for sure, and it's embarrassing when especially when you're on live radio back on Sirius XM or even CNN or anything. But the bottom line is, like, we're all vulnerable to falling for shit, and especially if we want to believe it, as you mentioned earlier. There's a new claim about Trump, like, raping someone when they were a child named Sasha Riley. I'll mention it because I think people should look into it and see how it's not been corroborated by any serious journalist. And if a serious journalist could corroborate it, it would make their career. I mean, who is it? Tara, what's her name, has done really good with all this Epstein stuff. And it's not conspiracy. It's corroborated. I mean, like, you can make a career by reporting on something. And then she also said the 2024 election was stolen. And I was like, neither of these things are true as far as I can tell. And we can't be falling for
2024 that were never, ever explored. That's a different thing. Like, it depends. For me, I can't reach the conclusion it was stolen. I can tell you with confidence there are real questions about the election, and we didn't get any recounts. And Democratic polling showed over 50% of Democrats had sincere questions. We weren't about ballots in suitcases. We wanted recounts. We wanted some audits. We got nothing because it was so jarring to lose all 7 battleground states. And that was, so we're like, how did this happen? This wasn't in any of the polling. So I think it was more intelligent questions about it all. Tara is very good. I think that there are times when we want to believe things. It's not about conspiracy. To me, conspiracy is like, it's really, there's a pizza parlor that has a child sex ring. And I'm like, okay, that's nuts. To believe that Trump may have been involved in a raping children or a rape ring with children, it's not unbelievable.
But that's the point. That's the point.
You have to look into it, right?
The point is, he has, like, he's raped many, many people. We don't have to make up a rape. Right, and when we do, the outlets or the individuals lose credibility by making something up as easily debunked. We don't need to, because we have all this evidence on this or that.
But things could end up being like, some of these things that are called conspiracies sometimes become true because they're not really conspiracies. People get dismissive when you say it's conspiracy. In the case of, all I say is to my fellow liberals, the same thing I would say to someone on the right if they would ever listen to me. Look at the source.
Yeah.
Just don't share it because you like what it says. Look at the source. If it's a reputable source, the problem is our definition of reputable has changed too.
Yep.
On the right, they're like, oh, it was in Breitbart. I'm like, and what's your point? Like, that's not reputable.
Right.
But to them it is. It was in, Ben Shapiro said in his podcast. Okay, that's bullshit to me. So I have different standards for what is believable and it's not. Same thing on, like, if you're going to send me an article that was written by a blogger for, like, Daily Kaz, let's say it's not vetted, it's not one of their actual writers.
Yeah.
Like, I have to go check it in another place before I'm going to share it with anyone. But I'm also a lawyer by training, or I used to go to court and try cases. You check everything. You never want to say something in a courtroom that's not true. It ruins your case, ruins your credibility. You get disbarred if you did it intentionally. So I have a very high standard about what I do. I really recommend people critical thinking, question it, look at the source. It's better for your credibility because you just one time you have bad credibility on an issue. Everyone questions you going forward from then on.
Yep. Exactly that, which is why yours is still intact, and you can hear Dean every night on Sirius XM and continue doing great work, introducing us to awesome voices and platforming all kinds of really smart, passionate people who are fighting the good fight as you have been for a long time. I'll let you go, but I don't want to.
Well, Pete, thank you very much. And thanks for being on my show Friday.
Anytime.
And I wish you the best with your stuff, and I hope you clean the room up before your next guest because he's got socks. I'm not even sure what that other thing is, some kind of, and it's a tricycle. No, that's a treadmill of some sort or a sex toy. I'm not sure what that is.
It's my dad's sex swing. It's a rehab sex swing.
Perfect.
Solo
all right, Pete, thank you.
Sex
Thanks,
swing.
everyone. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for watching, everybody. And there you have it. Dean Obeidallah. Go listen to him on Sirius XM 6 to 9. Go subscribe to his Substack. Follow him on all the social media. See him live. What else can I say? I got to get John Fugelsang back on here now. My two sons. I've got to get them on. Give them equal time and equal love. And looking forward to that. Who else would you like me to have on? Thank you very much for listening and supporting the show. Patreon.com/Pete Dominic. Can't do it without your support. John Carroll writes and performs all the music and wrote a very special song for Mom that really moved her. I keep forgetting to mention that at the opening and thanking him publicly, as I have privately. It was really sweet. She really loved it. All right. That's all I've got for you today. I will talk to you hopefully tomorrow if I can get another show in the can. If I cannot, it's just because I'm working with my daughter, and I work for her now. All right, guys. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Be grateful. Find the joy. Find the peace. Be the change you want to see.
Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know us right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You got to stand up. That's right. We got to rise up. You got to stand up. You got to stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear and all you hear is a lie. Don't get up off of your butt, get down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up, stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up, stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. Alright, we got to speak up, we got to reach up, and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up, stand up. Got to stand up. Ooh, come on, just stand up. Everybody got to stand up in the darkest hour. Stand up. People got the power. Stand up. Come on, come on, come on. Come on, come on, come on. Come on, come on, come on. Stand up.